Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learn From Us podcast. We are here today with Paul, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are
We're
you?
here today with a very special guest.
Moving on.
This is James Rores of Floriss Group. James, how are you, my friend?
Outstanding. Thank you.
You sound good. Very, very bassy, very white.
James, can I call you Jimmy?
So we were just joking around prior to the podcast. Paul's a huge Seinfeld fan.
I think we all are.
Yeah, of course. And we're talking about the Jimmy episode. Jimmy likes what he sees. Jimmy this, Jimmy that. So, James, tell us a little bit about your history. Tell us about Floriss Group. What do you do? Tell Paul, because he's never met you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to our website, it will tell you that we solve sales problems
Oh.
and we build growth cultures. The people that we work with most often are business owners and division executives who have high growth expectations, top line growth expectations, and they're not sure what's holding back their sales force. We also tend to think about sales as a team sport, which is why we think about a growth culture or a sales culture. Many business owners and executives want everyone to think like a salesperson, but that turns off most people who aren't salespeople.
I live in a world of photography where the term sales is like a very bad term.
Yep. Right.
Making money in general is bad because rich people are very terrible. But the idea of selling is like the worst thing ever. No one wants to sell. And so how did you get into, keep going with Floriss Group, like what do you do with companies to get them going in the right direction?
Yeah, like what size companies do you work with?
Well, that's good.
Well, a sweet spot for us is between 5 and 50 salespeople.
Oh, wow.
But my love is venture-backed startups and young companies. So I do a lot of work there with some venture capital firms, one in Columbus and one in Phoenix. And then we also do work with large organizations like Fortune and Global 500 companies that have divisions that are challenged by either competitive threats or severe economic slowdowns. As you know, in the face of a depression or recession, or economic threat, the survivors are the ones that aren't taking the easy fruit, the low-hanging fruit. They're the ones that can sell better than those that actually take business away from their competition.
So this is a huge topic.
You're 100% right.
This is a huge topic we're going to get into because I've never heard a company like or a brand stress the idea of recessions coming and you need to be ready for it. Paul has been prepping for this for 4 years now.
And I've been wrong.
So, but we'll get into that. So tell me about your history, James. Like, how'd you get into all this? I'd love to know. Go ahead, because I know your dear wife. So wait, I forgot to tell everyone. James is a recent. Oh, this is a story. How can I forget? James is a recent client of Crossroads Media. So I found you on LinkedIn at one point. I think I gave you a voicemail like, "Hey, you look amazing. You sound awesome. I love your vibe. I think we should work together." It wasn't Paul. It was like not a normal pitch, just like, "I think you're awesome." And you called me back, which not many people do.
It's a numbers game in sales, right?
We can talk about that. Yeah.
All right.
You
That's
called
part
me.
of it.
You
That's
called
part
me
of it.
back, and I think we instantly hit it off. I think you're kind of a. I probably told you on the phone. You're kind of an intimidating guy with like your presence and like your
He's very built.
kick-ass mentality. So, but now I feel like we're luckily we're on the same page now. But so like, tell me like, again, go back to like the history of like where you came from and how you got to this stage.
Well, short story. I was raised a fourth generation family business of entrepreneurs. So my heritage is, my dad's side is Greek restaurants, Buffalo, New York, fourth generation. And, but
Good
was it,
Midwest town.
yeah, Midwest mentality. And I think, and what's interesting, my dad, early in our lives, he was a insurance guy. He was a sales guy. So he learned how to sell insurance with Allstate and was a very successful sales guy, awards everywhere. I mean, our basement was full of his stuff. So I had that sales mentality that I grew up with early on. Didn't get into the restaurant biz, went to college, went to grad school, left grad school with the disadvantage, I used to think, of one, the arrogance of my MBA.
Hey, here we go.
This is a topic Paul's a big fan of.
Jimmy with the kill.
The arrogance of my MBA, the arrogance of my youth, and the arrogance of having been raised an entrepreneur. I went to grad school at Northeastern University, and I went there because of the co-op program. I was almost fired from every one of my co-ops because I knew better than the people I was working with. I was not a team player.
All right.
So what did I do when I left
That's the
grad
very
school?
anti-MBA mentality.
I thought I was going to become part of that club. I rejected the club in my subconscious, left grad school, started a company, and began consulting with businesses on how to sell and market and drive growth.
So that was your first company you started?
Well, back in 91, I started a consulting practice, evolved over those 15 years, and then went back in and started a coaching practice, which is what Floriss is all about.
So when you started this right out of grad school, cold calling, what'd you do? Networking events? Like, what was it?
Okay, that's a really interesting story.
This is pre-internet, right?
Prodigy was like $8 a month.
Right, and I was lugging around my Mac in a it was a luggable.
Come on.
I was so proud of this shoulder bag that I bought to hold my cube, right? It was like 15,
That's the
20
Mac with like
pounds.
the handle on top back in the day, or
It was smaller than that. It was like, and it had a screen like this. And,
Oh, yeah.
And the guy I was working with, so I cold called a consultant who showed me the ropes. So I was his protege. He was my mentor.
That's awesome.
And so what we did was we invested in a half-hour radio show weekdays, Monday through Friday, during drive time.
Oh, yeah. What did that cost?
$500 an episode.
Oh, my God, in
Back in the
$1991.
day,
91. We sat around a table like this, interviewed executives. We then gave away cassette tape recordings.
Can you please tell me what a cassette tape is?
If you don't know,
Yeah.
look it up.
Okay.
Internet.
Noted.
Right? We gave away cassettes. We wrote our own newsletter, and we had executive briefings every Friday for people who listened to the show that wanted to meet the guest and talk about the topic. Wow. So we did everything we're doing today digitally. We did back then, and it was much more expensive, much more cumbersome.
How long did you do that for?
About 2.5, 3 years.
So it was pretty effective?
About 250 or 300 episodes. Yeah, it was very effective. But again, also cold call. You have to do a little bit of everything, right, to be successful.
So he's glaring at me because he's our sales coach.
I'm not a sales coach. I always sit there and say I'm not a sales coach. What I am is like I help them consult with the business, and I just tell them, guys, we can't just focus on one thing in the funnel. We got to put many things in the funnel, see what starts to work, and put our efforts towards the things that start to work. Because he'll naturally gravitate towards certain things based on his personality.
Right.
Like Seth, it really isn't a let me pick up the phone and call kind of guy. But you get him in front of a group of people, he's like, hey, I'm Seth. I mean, look at him. Don't you want to talk to him?
Very handsome.
Or
and
talk or
sexy.
run.
Yes.
I mean, it's very binary.
One of the two. So after this radio show, we're like when? So Floriss Group like officially founded when?
Well, so what happened at that time? Technology was emerging. I was working with a lot of old technology or old school type businesses. Parents leaving their business to their next generation. So generational transition. I was working in a lot of those printing and other types of businesses that really didn't have a future from my perspective. I couldn't wait to get into technology. So I went and became a VP of sales for a startup, a CRM startup.
Oh.
And that was sold in 98. And then I transitioned into other tech startups. And so I co-founded a company that did POP3 email accounts.
Oh.
We did online gamings, and I ran sales for that. And we actually had CNN as a client. They were leveraging our stuff at that time. The big sites were trying to attract volume of visitors and then monetize it. And we were keeping people on the site longer. So we that company went public through a reverse merger in 97. And then I leveraged that and went back to Boston and got involved in a bunch of other venture-backed startups. So what attracted me to the venture-backed startups was my entrepreneurial background, my skills, my sales skill set. And I went to work with one of the three founders of this nice-sized tech startup in Boston, and that wrote the book for the next several years until the end of 2005. So I became an employee of some high-growth organizations, but I became a journeyman salesperson. I became expert at selling things that that you had never heard of before to solve problems you didn't know you had for companies that never existed until a year ago.
Oh, I see.
So we didn't have customers to leverage. We didn't have oftentimes technology that worked, but I was still closing $1 million deals. So I was one of those journeyman mercenaries who went to work for the highest.
Can you give an example? Like when you say close $1 million deal, like give me an example of a company you worked for, the kind of product they had, who you were selling to, and how you did it.
So when you have digital content, you create lots of digital content. You need content management.
Okay.
So I worked for a company that sold content management software in the midst of a market that had already a number of content management players. When you have a product that people don't understand or that has a lot of competition, maybe not a lot of differentiation, what do you do? Especially if you have no customers. So we were.
You close up shop.
Well, you can close up shop. But this really is the genesis for the way that we teach people to sell today. What you can't do is you can't focus on your product.
Right. Service?
You have to focus on the client's problem.
Oh, okay.
So I became an expert at understanding my clients' challenges, and not just the problem itself, but building value for the solution that I would then bring to the table. So what ended up happening is through the process of, we call them creating agreements, right? The agreement that you want is that purchase agreement, but there are agreements that happen before that I became really good at achieving. What do you want to achieve? What's the impact of success and what's missing? I became consultative, to use your phrase, and in doing so became very trusted.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that a company like McGraw-Hill would invest several $1 million in our technology over time, so much so that the guy that hired us got promoted. All those things happen, not because we had a differentiated product necessarily or the biggest brand or huge customers, but because I did a great job at differentiating us in the eyes and minds of the customers that we were working for. They had a high-risk decision to make, and they went with the person they trusted most.
So when you say digital management software, can you explain that? Because even I need some explanation about what. So like McGraw-Hill has all these books and learning tools, right, for schools and things like that. Is that what you're talking about there?
Right. So it's content management. What you all hear today about meta tagging and taxonomies and so forth, all that stuff happens digitally. How do you manage that? How do you make sure everything's tagged and organized properly? And then how do you make sure it's accessible? I can search it, find it, and go for it. Now, we were a precursor to what we have today, which is Google.
Mm-hmm.
I was also part of a artificial intelligence company that did search. We tried building Google based on a theory from a professor in Boston. I was part of a company that transformed mainframe computers into N-tier client-server architectures, and we worked directly with the Media Lab out of MIT to bring big companies into town. So I was changing jobs every 2 years. I became a prototypical, very aggressive, very manipulative salesperson.
Very manipulative.
Yeah, I was the epitome. I tell people, if you've ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross.
Of course, it's like the salesperson
Right.
Bible.
I was Alec Baldwin in that times 10. So
wow.
I
never saw it.
I have only seen half of it, but yeah, he was the intense guy.
Yeah, so I wasn't there for my customers. I was there for myself. But what I learned how to do was to manipulate my clients really well. And I was a top producer everywhere I went. Now I say that not being proud of it, but I say it to set up the shift that occurred for me. I tell the story all the time. It was Friday, the last Friday of the year, and I was 330% of my number. I was a top rep worldwide. I had achieved that in the worst territory in the world in 8 months.
Where was that worst territory in the world?
Boston, New England.
Canton, Ohio.
For this company, it was their worst performing.
No.
It was their worst performing territory, and so I was expecting to do very well. And a client that I had closed wanted to walk away from the deal. They had already spent $100,000 into a $200,000 contract, and I was not going to let them go. I didn't need the business, But what happened was my boss and the global VP of sales were listening in on the deal, on the sales call. And so I was performing. And my worth was connected to my work, so I was not going to fail. And so what ended up happening was I essentially handled every objection. I got him to agree to keep the deal. But at the end of that call, actually during that call, I was burping up stomach acid. It was the event that that I realized that everything I had done over the previous 15 years, all the risks that I was taking with my health, finally caught up to me. And the next day, I got on the computer, found a life coach, hired him that day, and within 6 months, I was functional and recognized the mistake I had made. Right. So,
what do you mean you were functional?
Functional versus dysfunctional.
Oh, okay,
gotcha.
In
terms of my belief systems and the way that I approached my job, and so I learned that I didn't have to be this. I didn't have to look at sales as a zero-sum game.
Yeah,
I can win and you can win. I never approached it that way.
So to explain that to everybody, what zero-sum game means is he's basically saying he looked at sales before as if you have to lose for me to win. That's not the way anything really, not many things in life are, except for like war. I mean, that's pretty much a game, you play somebody, but he changed. So when you saw that, was that event that caused that? Or were you having kind of rumblings in your head along the way, kind of going, is this really the way I want to be as a person? What was the plan? Because you don't seem to be that guy right now. I mean, I only met you 10 minutes ago, but I walked in, I'm like, man, here's a really like laid back, nice guy. You kind of looked like, Jesse James, what's his Susan? Somebody help me out here.
That's his name, Jesse James, the motorcycle guy.
Motorcycle guy. Yes, you look like the motorcycle guy,
Never
Jesse
got it
James.
before?
Cool.
Yeah. So kind of got this.
What's her name? From Speed. Her ex-husband.
Oh,
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Oh yeah, that's right. They were married.
Yeah.
It's funny. My wife looks like Sandra Bullock.
Does she really? No way. That's impressive. Look at this. Do you have sex with tattoo artists on the side? Because that's what he was doing.
That's what he was doing, right?
Yeah. So, like, were you just like all of a sudden epiphany hit you? You're like, this is not me, or what was it?
It's crazy. When you have the epiphany, you then can look back and see all the signs you missed,
of course,
along the way. And I have so many stories of James the asshole, pardon my French, but that I wasn't even aware of.
This was the manipulative side of,
and the self, I mean, and I used to have, I when I first met my coach, I let him know that there are two versions of me. There's James and there's Jimmy. And he said, what do you mean?
This is good.
And, James is the guy that shows up at work. Jimmy's the guy that shows up at home.
Yeah.
So I was living my core values, how I was raised at home with my family. I was. Yeah, I was. I just loved being a dad and loved, and I knew I was going to raise my daughters to be leaders and all that. But when I was at work, flip the switch.
Really?
Zero-sum game, eat or be eaten, kill or be killed. And that was it.
Wow.
And I got that, what I needed from the people around me by being that top producer.
How old are you right now?
53, just turned.
So when did that happen?
About 40, yeah. About just before I turned 40.
All right. So that's pretty impressive. So you had this big awakening thing, and you said, I'm going to go online and find this life coach.
And it was just when, life coaches were kind of emerging as a popular thing. And and so what was really cool is I had that coach for 10 years. Not because I was so messed up, but because it became really interesting to me. And I decided very quickly that every CEO and sales leader I had ever known needed this way of viewing the world, because I was responding to, now I blame myself, but I was responding to the culture, the sales culture that I ran into at every venture-backed company. That sales culture said, look, man, we're here to make life-changing money. This might be our only shot. It doesn't matter who you step on along the way. They'll go get other jobs. They'll be fine. It doesn't matter. What only matters is the exit. We got to close the business, generate the revenue, get the exit. And so I loved that way of thinking because it allowed me to be the man, the savior. It allowed me to be, when I used to love the old mobster movies, and Bogart, was a thug in one of these movies, and his advice to a young kid who was an emerging thug was, look, if somebody comes to a fight with their fists, you bring a knife. Somebody brings a knife, you bring a gun. Somebody brings a gun, you bring more guns. You bring a tank. I was the master of acceleration, right? And that intimidation that you sensed that's something I cultivated, very, very specifically.
How did you go from such a high level
I was just going to say that. Good question.
down to like waving the white flag if I need help?
It was, I think this is just, there's another great story, a parable about the man who is in his chair listening to the radio, and over the radio it says, hey, there's bad weather coming. Look out for the flood. He's like, don't worry, God will take care of me. The flood comes to his front door, and there's a man in a boat. Hey, you want to ride? No, it's okay. God will take care of me. He ends up on his roof, helicopter. Don't worry, God will take care of me. He drowns and asks God, why did you forsake me?
Yes.
And God says, I sent you a radio. I sent you
A boat,
So
a helicopter.
we all get these messages, right? And so it was a culmination of those messages, and it was just the push that I needed. The push I needed was to be brought to the brink of losing this deal, having the opportunity to close it, not do what's best for my client, but what's best for me, perform in front of my boss and his boss. I'm the top producer worldwide. I was going to be the first top producer in the history recognized by the company, so I have a ring that has a number 1 on it, and no other sales guy in the history of that company has a ring like this. So I was bought into all of it, and it was more than I could take. And for some reason, I woke up. I made a call.
So do you do that but now with your sales coaching and consulting? If somebody comes to you and says, kill or be killed, what do you say?
Well, if somebody comes to me with that
Attitude, mentality.
yeah, with that zero-sum game attitude, I know, just like anyone who has a bad habit, I know that they're not healthy. I know that they're not well. So it's a simple question. If you could change anything about your experience as a salesperson, what would it be? Right? There is evidence of stress in every one of our lives. It's just a matter of whether or not we're willing to look at it, be aware of it. And so if there's nothing that they would change, then there's nothing I can do to help them.
Hey, I mean, how many people tell you nothing?
I say, God bless you.
How many
That's
people
great.
say that? What percentage of people say, I want to change nothing?
Well, I think the thing, I only talk to people who are curious typically,
Yeah.
or who are hired. I'm only hired by people who are curious, and then I have to meet people.
I was going to say,
who
they have
aren't curious.
they have underlings who are like,
Right.
we don't have a big sales force, but we have our sales manager here, Chris. One of the things I love about him is he sells phenomenally well, and he's always like, yeah, we got to get better. You know what I mean? He's always looking at himself going, okay, I take training to go get better. I mean, all these things. I've had other salespeople I've dealt with in the past, and when they didn't do well, and they still consider some of the best salespeople in the world. I'm like, you didn't do well. Like, let's pump the brakes here and say, hey, you have to sit there and realize that you're not going to know everything. All of us are learning I always tell people, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are like the best investors ever. They're 89 and 93, and they still learn every single day, right? So how do you deal with that arrogant sales guy who walks in and goes, I'm the best?
Right. Well, I face that every time I jump in front of a sales force,
Right.
that I'm supposed to train.
Of course.
So I never like being one of those people in the seats with this arrogant sales coach in front of me, right? So the first thing I do to disarm the group is I let them know that I have a no bullshit policy. And that is that if you hear me say anything that sounds or smells like bullshit, you got to raise your hand and yell bullshit.
How many people do that?
It happens once every session.
Nice.
Now, and it's great because what I do is I say, then the next thing is accountability. You're holding me accountable, and if I can't address that bullshit that you thought you heard because maybe you've misunderstood or I wasn't clear, and you're not happy, either you can leave or you can ask me to leave, and I'll give your boss his money back her money back.
That's wonderful.
So what I do is I'm not going to be an arrogant guy. I'm going to give them the power to fire me. Now that defensiveness is gone, and now they're much more curious.
Oh yeah.
And I always start. And one of the things that we believe that you can't drive change unless you're willing to create a new habit. So our definition of a winning habit includes 3 components: mindset, skill set, tool set. So every time I coach or train, I explore the mindset of somebody who's willing to change versus someone who's not willing to change. And I challenge everybody. I don't care where you are after today, but in this session, are you willing to have that growth mindset, that curious mindset, where you can make decisions with clarity versus the complacent mindset where you only make decisions in crisis? Right? So are you going to be the salesperson who's put on a performance improvement plan because you weren't smart enough to ask questions 3 months ago? Right?
Yeah.
Or curious enough? And then are you going to be the kind of person that waits to the crisis, wait until you're threatened to lose your job, then you get curious. And then you rush and you, with much urgency, make decisions to try to keep that job, and you end up doing maybe more harm than good, right? That when we make decisions in crisis, it cultivates a victim mentality. We blame the crisis. A business owner who goes out of business because they're undercapitalized.
For fuck's sake,
Right?
people.
So Paul is very.
Should I move my chair?
Paul, he's very. Listen, I hear this on a weekly basis because Paul is very adamant about this. When it comes to, he's a very loving person, and he shows a lot of love to people, very giving. But when it comes to a business side, you're a little less open to hearing excuses. And
well, listen, even on the personal side, I won't listen to excuses. So that's the thing, we talk about, when you said the thing about you different with your family than business, some of the issues I have sometimes I treat my family like the business. Like, hey, I didn't get this done. Why didn't you get it done? Paul, it was freaking cleaning out the closet. I'm like, yeah, but you committed yourself to cleaning the closet. You didn't do it. What's the reason? And I sit there and say, it doesn't matter what the reason is. You didn't do it. That's kind of, it's funny when I hear you say I was different at home in the family. I'm like, damn, good for you. And I'm trying to do that. But the thing I like about what you're saying, though, is the crisis. People always blame the crisis. In 09 and 10, we made a killing in stocks and real estate. And you know how many people came to me and said, yeah, I lost everything. It was the damn market. I'm like, no, it's because you weren't prepared when all the signs in the world said, when he says I've been worrying about recession for so long, I just look at history and I go, I don't want to be that guy who says, oh, I lost everything because the market changed on me. No, you just didn't watch the right things and you got caught up in things. Right. Same thing happened in sales. I had a friend of mine who used to work for the Cavs. When LeBron was there the first stint, he was like, we're the best salesman ever. I'm like, well, yeah, LeBron's there. He's like, I hate it when people say that. The second LeBron left, the entire sales force quit. He went and found a new job. Oh, so now it's not easy to sell when you don't have LeBron. You know what I mean? I sit there and say, listen, I wasn't saying he was a bad salesperson. I was just sitting there and said, a rising tide raises all ships, right? A rising stock market makes everybody look like a genius who has stocks, including an 8-year-old kid who I just saw on TV the other day who was talking about how he's a stock, he masters stocks. He's making $1,000 a day in stocks. I'm like, well, yeah, but what happens when the market falls? Same thing. What happens when LeBron leaves? Same thing. It's like, the frustrating thing for us is when a salesperson says, well, here are the issues I have with our product. You're always going to have issues with our product. There's always going to be issues. We can't, imagine how many companies you were selling with. Did every single company look at your software and say, that is perfect for us?
Right. None of them did.
Exactly.
And none of them said, and we're not going to look at a competition. We're not going to negotiate price. We're not going to challenge you on these 75 other things. And so that is the essence. So what we know to be true, and this is true in sales, it's true in life, is that 80% of the success that we have is based on the differentiation that the salesperson brings to the table. We say you have the customers you deserve. That's another way of saying it. I have one rule in business with employees.
Write that down.
And with
I make his social videos. So
seriously,
you don't own that though, right? I know.
No. You don't own that.
But with customers and with employees and with partners, I have one rule: just make and keep commitments. That's it. I want you to keep the commitments that you make. James, how can I be successful in your business? Keep the commitments you make. That's it. That's the one rule for any employee in any situation, anywhere
This
in
is
the world.
this is one of the first things. So I tell this to a lot of my friends because I've been working with Paul for going on maybe 3 years now.
Really in depth, like a year, but go ahead.
Is like obviously he's much more wealthier in a better position than I am in life.
Blah, 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 blah.
And I thought the whole time I was taking all the right steps in life. So then I basically, like, Paul's been a great mentor to me over these last years, but then he gives me tips like what you're saying, and I find it hard to implement it in my normal sort of like normal life. And I have to sit back and say, if I want to get to this stage, I have to start implementing simple things. Like if I'm going to meet him for a coffee, I have to be on time. Where for most people, it's kind of like, I'll see you at 11-ish. Ish is like the new trend, right?
Yeah, I hear the ish thing. How often are you late for meetings?
I'm one of those guys that
Yep.
Paul, he was here an hour early.
Horrible. I feel
He beat me to the
horrible
studio.
for a week if I'm.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it's
But so now that's transferred. Is like Paul says, why would I ever do $1 million deal with you if you can't show up to a simple meeting on time?
right.
And so this is transferred to my life, into I'm trying to coach my wife, my kids about this. You know, Beth, I still get on her. We still have topics about this because like she'll have a phone call at 1:00 and it's like 12:58 and she's just like, hey. I'm like, don't you? The Paul in me. So, but anyway, keep going. I digress. But yeah. So I think we're going back to like hiring this coach. I'm always amazed when people can, like I was sort of saying, raise the white flag and say, hey, I need help with this. Tell me about this coach.
No one should raise the white flag and say, I need help. Everyone needs help. I'm a big believer in that. When it's kind of like, I don't believe that you should get to a point of, because then that's the reactionary.
That's the crisis.
Yeah, that's the crisis mode that you were just talking about. Guys, everyone in this world needs help. Bill Gates does, Jeff Bezos does, Warren Buffett does, every single person.
Well, I think for most people, the feeling is there's something wrong with me if I need help.
That's arrogant. That to me is like, not arrogant. That's, what is the right word for that one? That's stupid for one thing, because we all need help.
Well, see, yeah, I struggle with that. You told me you think that all married people should seek counseling.
Day one, you should be with a marriage
My wife
marriage
wants me to
therapist.
go, and I still think it's some sort of sign of weakness.
Sure. That's your perception of it. Just like somebody's perception of how they are as a salesperson. It's only your perception.
Yeah.
What's reality is you have the clients, you have the sales that you deserve.
You have the life you deserve. You have
the
the
wife,
business you deserve.
you have the
I know.
marriage you deserve.
You have the relationships you deserve. So what that says is that you have agency. You have to accept agency.
What
Now,
does that mean?
Agency or take the lead in your life. So agency means you own it.
Oh, okay.
It's your responsibility. So what you're saying to your kids who aren't cleaning their room or who aren't keeping their commitments is, your success and your failure, your happiness in life is in your hands. And so what you're teaching your kids every day a very core leadership principle, right? And so my daughter just went to college.
Oldest daughter, right?
My oldest daughter, with all the stuff that's going on around how campuses are so dangerous for women in terms of sexual assault, drugs, date rape, all that stuff. How do you take agency for yourself and still enjoy your life? That's something you've got to figure out. But there are many of us who don't. They just go with the flow.
Most people.
Yeah. And again, that's what separates us as human beings. But your feeling of there must be something wrong with me if I need help, that's a very common.
Yeah, I wouldn't reach out for help unless there's something wrong with me.
Right. And so there's a great book, but it's also a great saying. You don't have to be sick to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. You don't have to wait for the crisis. I haven't had a cold in probably a decade. Now, what do? I probably eat differently than most people.
Look at this body
I
over here, a
probably
53-year-old man right
differently.
here.
I sleep
How much do you
differently.
sleep?
Well, I don't sleep lately. I don't sleep well, but I'm like 6 hours.
Really?
But I eat. My diet is very controlled. I work out every day. I meditate. All that stuff. I understand holistically. My goal is health. Right. My goal used to be success in the eyes of the people around me. I was performing for everyone else. Now I'm performing for myself. So it's this idea of taking agency. What are you focused on? And the difference between a coach and a consultant, or a coach and an advisor, is an advisor has insight and information. You're a thought leader. Or as a consultant, you're hired to do the work for the customer and then give them the answer. The coach is a guide.
So maybe it's better we call it coach. You're right.
A coach is a guide. I'm going to guide you to your
that's
truth,
funny. Yeah,
your version of the truth.
I've always loved coaches my whole life. So that's a nice way to yeah, I guess if my wife said we're going to a marriage coach,
you'd be much more open to it than therapist.
Absolutely.
Because there's a negative connotation of therapy.
As long as a therapist, this is very, so I endorse therapists as well. Because therapists are licensed they're licensed at a level that a coach is not. Therapists can look backwards in your life and help you understand why. Coaches tend to look forward and help you figure out how to get to where you want to be.
That's a good differentiation too.
The therapists are great as long as they don't only operate as a consultant or advisor. Here's what's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to also head off a foot in the coaching realm to help you figure out and help guide you to your realization of the truth, because once you have it, you'll never lose it. But somebody can't just give it to you and have it be meaningful.
Well, that's like everything in life.
Teach a man to fish.
Of course.
Right?
Well, it's just like therapy also. It's I've heard people say, well, my therapist told me that all these problems are because my father did this. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know if the therapist said that, but that to me is a victim mentality. It's like, yeah, your father might have done A, B, and C, but you still get to choose how you react to that. The same thing with your product. If you want the perfect, it's funny. You ever watch $1 Million Listing?
Yes.
Love that show. The worst character in all time of that show, I forget his name, Madison, I think it was. He was once working with a client, and he said to the client, this foreign guy, listen, you need to put a full ask price in this thing. He's like, why? He's like, if you want the deal, you have to get it. You have to put full ask. You know, the guy said to him, then why do I need you if I'm going to give full ask price? And I was like, hot diggity damn. That should be a lesson to everyone in life, not just salespeople, but in that situation, it pertains to a salesperson. It's like, if you want the perfect situation for you, just kill yourself. It's never going to happen. I mean, I go to the extreme, of course, because I like to be this okay, extreme. I go, oh, well, then you might as well just die right now because you're never going to have it perfect. So what's the point of living if you want it to be perfect, right? It's all about how we react to these things. And in sales, especially, it's about overcoming those objections. But my question on your side is like, because I'm very interested, I'm going through a lot of life changes now in terms of how I view the world. Because I used to think, oh, money equals happiness. As Bethy said about my senior quote, life is a game, money is how you keep score, was my senior quote. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed by that now. And I'm glad that now that embarrasses me.
When did you graduate from high school?
99.
Okay.
We graduated together. Mm-hmm. And
so I graduated in 84. So it was the same kind of thing. KKR, Barbarians at the Gate, Wall Street, Gordon Gekko.
Greed is good.
Deal. Greed is good. Yeah.
But mine was this I was like, oh, okay, mine's still Yevsky. Now I look at it and I'm so embarrassed by that quote because even though we all do things. I shouldn't say we all. I was going to ask you, and he said, I do things for me instead of others now. Like, give me the spectrum. There's 1 to 10. As I was telling my girlfriend the other day, we all have materialism. We all have shallowness. It's a scale of 1 to 10. Some people might be 1 or 2. Some people might be 10. People who put their self-worth based on their material possessions are 10. People who are, Buddhist, what I mean? They're like the other extreme of saying, I don't care about these things. And there's a lot of people in the middle. When you put your value, you said, I used to live for me, and now I don't do for that. So how is obviously some of it's being said, but obviously you believe a big part of it. I can tell from your humbleness here. Like, if I met you on the street or at the gym, I wouldn't have thought you have this company like this.
Killer sales mentality.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had that thought. So explain to me that change. Like, was it really that one event on that phone? It had to have been other things percolating. Because I've gone through a lot of these changes in the last 10 years going like, listen, I like my money, I like my stuff, but at the same point.
Well, what are some of these maybe before James answers, what are some of those changes that you've gone through? Because I've asked him in the past, normal people like myself, my friends, we say, God, if we only had $1 million, what would we do with it? I mean, what would we do? We get the cars in the houses.
No, if I only had $1 million, I would be happy.
Right.
Life would be easier.
Right. So what we're talking about, so there are lots of analogies, right? So has anybody ever come to you with their resume, say, hey, I'm looking for work. Can you help me find a job? Can you help me network?
Of course.
Well, and then you ask them, okay, I would typically ask, I get that all the time. I typically ask, because we hire salespeople and place them, what kind of a job would make you happy? Well, I don't know, but I'm good at logistics. So what's interesting is that I can't help you find the right job for you unless you know the right job for you. I can't help you find a husband or wife unless you know what you're looking for in a lifetime partner. I can't help you find happiness until you can define happiness.
But do they know what happiness really is for them?
What I hear from you is that happiness in high school was money, $1 million bucks. But maybe what I'm hearing from you now is that life has taught you that it's more complicated.
Of course.
It's more subtle. It's more sophisticated. All I did was realize that my definition, because everybody on the planet operates and makes decisions that they believe are in their own best interest all the time. That is an absolute truth that you learn when you go through a coaching process.
Even the bad things.
Even the bad things. Even smoking, right? This is better for me than not smoking. So it's everything we do, we believe we're doing for our own best interest. So all that's changed for you, all that changed for me was my definition of what's in my own best interest. So for example, we allow the TV to tell us that there's such thing as a low-fat hot dog. Give me a break. We allow the TV to tell us that you should take these supplements, even though you don't know what's inside it and you don't know how much you need. Take this, you'll be better. Mm-hmm. We allow other people to tell us all the time what's best for us. And we grow up in this fog where we're listening, and then we complain about not getting the truth. Well, you know what? You've got to take agency. Find the truth, right? TV wants you to believe that having $1 million house and having all these riches and servants is going to make you happy. Guess what? So as long as you believe that.
Oh, I like having servants, by the way, just for the record.
It does make you happy when you're on vacation.
I'm kidding. I have no servants.
Well, the Mexico house or
in Mexico,
staff.
It's staff. I mean, go ahead.
Right. But anyway, all it's changing is your definition of success. You're getting to know yourself better. All that happened with me with coaching was I had a real intense experience of getting to know who I was. And then over those 10 years, I learned how to help other people achieve that same level of awareness.
Do you remember the first time you started, that thought popped in your head of, and by the way, I know we're talking a lot about life versus business right now, but I think they're all interrelated.
Can't separate them.
No, you can't. Do you remember the first time you sat there and said, is my thought process right? Or maybe I'm a little off here?
Absolutely. And so for me, I have built absolute universal truths that I live by now. That are very easy for me to live by, and they help me make decisions quicker.
Can you share those?
Oh, so many people that I've met struggle with this. I was raised in the church, Greek Orthodox, and what
right hand ring,
right hand ring, and you hear people of Jewish faith, Catholic faith, our faith, other faiths. So what do we learn when we're growing up? We learn guilt.
Mm-hmm. Especially the Catholics.
I mean, we all make fun of our own existence, and I'm like, okay, so why do I have to feel guilt? So I was thoughtful about it, did some reading, and you know what? I like the definition that my faith, my religion is kindness. What if we were just all kind? What if I just did that? What if I operated from that one perspective? Would I need all the other trappings and teachings that I grew up with? Now, I'm not recommending this for everybody, but it's an easy question. What if you were just kind? Right? What if you chose love over judgment?
Were you not kind before?
I was not kind. I was.
But your family, you said you were a very great dad.
Yes, in that context, in the business context, I was not.
Okay.
So that there's a duality to our lives, right? There's our ego and our spirit, right? Ego separates us from other people. Ego believes in win-loss, right?
A zero-sum game.
Zero-sum game. I was 100% egocentric. It's all about me, screw everybody else. And I didn't realize that my success really depends upon other people's success. You can't live that way, and it can't be sustained. So I chose to operate with this idea of connectedness. And you know what? When you teach a salesperson to focus on connecting and raising all boats, not just your own, you create a growth multiplier. You create somebody who 1 + 1 = 3. You find the accelerator in the relationships that you create, and you actually do way better with much less effort than as a zero-sum game salesperson. And this idea that talking about sales means we're not talking about something everybody identifies with, that's bullshit. Because everyone has something to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Everyone has something to sell. Whether you're trying to get your child to wear their helmet when they ride their bike. So there are three concepts. You sell when you ask someone to do something for you. You sell when you ask someone to join you on a path. And you sell when you're looking to exchange value or trade. So whether you're doing something or you want somebody to join you or to exchange something with you, you are selling. You're trying to get somebody to make a decision that you've asked them to make, period. So we can all learn from this universal truth. And we developed something called the universal buying cycle, which allows all of us to achieve 4 agreements to move somebody to create a successful buying decision for the people that we're working with. And so it's a very connected, holistic way to build and create relationships that multiplies the effort you put in. And here's a proof. If you think about, you have 2 options to approach somebody. You can either approach them by trying to force them to do something, like I did as a salesperson, or you can earn the right to lead them down that path. Forced leadership or earned leadership. Forced leadership of a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think you should have been smarter about this?
Yeah.
Don't you think? So, or do it because I said so. So the leader who leverages force uses manipulation. They collect power. They collect authority like I did so that they can shorten the decision-making process and get you to... Now, that person also is viewed as salesy. They're viewed as manipulative. They're viewed as arrogant. When I close a deal using force, it makes it harder for me to close the next deal. Mm-hmm. I'm actually making it harder for me to grow. The growth multiplier is the person that earns the right to walk someone down that path to change. Because when I do something that's in both of our best interest, the next sale is easier. I become a growth multiplier. So salespeople, like parents, like employees, we get confused and we bounce between those two paths, those 2 lanes. I show up wanting to be a good person. And then when the person gives me a little bit of pushback, I'm like, I've got to force. I got to start telling why they should do it. When I see them resist, I now go back to asking questions. But it's not happening fast enough, so I become forceful and manipulative again. Mm-hmm. And I bounce between those personas. I am viewed as salesy, as pushy, as manipulative, and I feel gross. That's when sales feels gross. So what you have to do is pick the lane, earn the mantle of leadership by pursuing a shared goal and walking that person down a shared path to change. And if you do that consistently all the time, you'll never feel gross, you'll never appear salesy. And even if the successful buying decision isn't buying from you, you'll create a relationship that will drive the growth of your business, because that person, next time they need something, they will call you first.